Hello, welcome to Art Online. My very special guest today, someone we know really well, Andrea Tyrimos. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Hi, I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Very good, very good. It's been a while since we've talked, so I'm glad we can speak over the magic of the internet.
Exactly, that's the beauty of this. We can all just catch up with each other.
Exactly, and one of the things that I'm struck by the picture behind you. I've been sort of seeing this picture grow on Instagram and Facebook, and it's part of a new series that you're doing that I just thought it'd be good to talk to you about. And so yeah, would you mind just telling me about the work that you're doing?
Yeah, of course. So this is actually the first finished piece. It's a series of installations and it's called the Rainbow Collection, and it's a body of work that's been created in lockdown, or at least the first part has, depending on how much longer we can find to our homes. And the purpose of it is, so you're really familiar with the last series of work, Bipolar Picasso, where I explored sitters who had experience with mental illness and mental health issues. So it's kind of following on from that, but instead of featuring people who have actually an actual diagnosis, I'm exploring ways that different people within our society are maintaining positive mental health. So the purpose being that I want this to be a really uplifting series of work. I want it to inspire people. So I'm looking at members of the public, such as the wonderful Emmy Lou here, who I know that you know as well. She's a fellow artist and a wonderful, wonderful human. I love her. But I'm also hoping to think about heroes. So my next piece is actually a doctor who's been working on the front line with COVID patients. And just kind of, so all different ways that people are maintaining positive mental health. So that it's got the audio as well as the painting as with the other pieces. And I'm really excited about them.
I mean, it looks amazing, and I do like these series. I mean, you mentioned Bipolar Picasso, and one of the things that I did like about that series of works was that it was featuring the person. So you saw the image, and then you heard their story. So it was a much more rounded type of exhibition that you had. You felt that even though the person wasn't in the room, you felt that you got to know them much more than you would ever do. What gave you the idea to just do the positivity then? What was the spark that lent you to say, all right, this is a series of pieces that I'm going to do?
I think we're all in a really scary time, and there's a kind of collective anxiety that we're all experiencing. We've never been, I know everybody keeps saying this phrase, but we really are in uncertain times at the moment, and everything can become quite overwhelming with what we're hearing and news outlets and rumours and everything else. So I just felt like we just need positivity. Yeah, and I think that's always been my go-to whenever things are difficult. My way of coping is through my art and by remaining positive, always looking for the silver lining, always trying to turn things around. So for me, it was just a no-go. It was just a no-brainer. I mean, I just had to focus on that element of it. I'm in no way trying to dampen how serious what we're going through is, and within the pieces, because like with the Bipolar Picasso piece, I'm also going to have that audio element. I am touching on the difficulties each sitter has faced with everything that's going on, but the overriding message is one that's hopefully will put a smile on people's faces. Sometimes it can be quite humorous, but yeah, it's a balancing act, isn't it? Because I think it's important for us to not pretend how difficult it's been as well, and not to brush that under the carpet. And unfortunately, I mean, all my work is to do with mental health. I think there is going to be a bit of a fallout in that area after it's all said and done. So we do need to really be mindful and careful of that. But yeah, I just felt like this was what I wanted to do, and I went with my instincts, and I've kind of learned over the years that I've got to trust in that.
It sounds like a bit of a balancing act then in terms of the pieces. So this positivity, so talking about positivity, but not forgetting the fact that actually, underlying it all, everyone has, their days that they need a little bit of extra time, and actually being able to focus on things that give you joy, perhaps, is a good thing. Have I got it sort of on the right track there?
No, perfectly. So, for example, Emmylou will speak about her anxiety. You know, it begins with speaking about her anxiety, about what's going on, the fact that she lives by herself, the things that she's finding difficult. But then she speaks about the beauty of nature and going on her walks and a stranger smiling at her and how much that will mean, and the fact that she's been able to connect with her spirituality. And I remember before I decided on doing these pieces, we were actually just chatting and sending each other little voice notes and messages back and forth. And she said something like, "Oh, the news. Oh, and oh, sorry, I'm just eating like 5 fab lollies and it's gorgeous." And it's those little moments, those little beautiful moments that we've got to really hang on to here. And I think one of the great things at the moment is that people are focusing on pure joy, and people are, where they can, people are being more playful, kind of connecting to that inner child that you wouldn't normally have the time and resources to do that before. So yeah, it's definitely, it's a balancing act. I by no means am trying to sort of dampen how horrendous everything. I mean, people are losing their lives. You can't get more serious than that. But I want to just focus on those little pure moments of joy.
And do you think there's, you know, because a lot of people are living in a slightly different way at the moment, that some of these little things, so you mentioned the story about the leaves that Emmy was eating there, that these sort of smaller things are really becoming much more noticeable. So I'm finding that I've got a little, I'll keep talking. I've got a little bird feeder outside, and I've been really loving the fact that I'm seeing those birds go to the bird, and I overlook a car park, but there's a bird feeder. I get a load of goldfinches. Wonderful little moments like that. Is that something you're doing as well? Just sort of noticing these little tiny things that you wouldn't necessarily notice before?
That's so lovely. Definitely. I definitely am, and I feel like people generally are. I think because we've been given that time that we're not used to having. I think initially everybody was really scared of having that time, but I think everyone's got in a bit of a rhythm now, and I think noticing those moments is so important for our everyday life. It's really great to be mindful generally. Everyone speaks about mindfulness and people imagine it's all to do with closing your eyes and meditation, but it's so much more than that. It's about going for a walk and being mindful of the sound of the bird song, and even just like running your fingers along a brick wall and the feeling and the texture of that. It's just about being mindful about being alive, and I think that's really important and special that we are able to do that. And I can hear the bird song now. Is that?
Yeah, they're just out there. There'll probably be loads
so
out
lovely.
there.
Yeah, that's so lovely.
I tell you what, they eat me out of house and home, though. I mean, they love sunflower seeds, right? Sunflower seeds. That's it. They're obsessed with them.
That's so beautiful. No, I love it. So I think I'd like to think that I've always a person that has noticed these kind of things, but it's just so wonderful to see and hear that everybody is as well. And it's all heightened now. It really is. And I just hope that when the world goes back to what we're used to, that these kind of this appreciation will stay, I hope.
Yes, he's noticing of these little moments, I think, is what I'm picking up from there. You know, you go for what you're observing what's happening around you. I don't know, you're just appreciating the time that you've got a little bit more, if you know what I mean.
Definitely.
Could I just ask you about the Bipolar Picasso? Mm-hmm. Because I do remember that, and I always like to know what's going on there. Because recently you had a piece, I think you Grand Central, the train company you bought, and it's up in my hometown now. Don't know if you know that, but it's proudly hanging on their first class lounge in the Wakefield Kirkgate station, as I understand. And so can you just tell me about that project again, and what it is that made you want to do that, and what you've done with it so far?
Yeah, of course. So that was a body of work. It was inspired by several people close to me have experience with different mental health issues, and thankfully it's a really hot topic at the moment, but back then, a few years ago, it wasn't spoken about as much, and people aren't really open about it for fear of being judged by society, which I find heartbreaking, because if it was a physical ailment, we'd all be very willing to speak about it. So out of frustration, I decided I wanted to create this new body of work, and it initially was just going to be the painting side of it. I just wanted to find different sisters who had similar experiences and paint a portrait of them, thinking obviously it's going to have its own challenges because you're trying to depict something that's invisible. How can you make that tangible? How can you get that across in something that's 2D? But when I would meet with the sitters and speak to them about what they'd been through, I really quickly recognized the fact that it was their stories that was the most important part of this. And listening to them talk, that obviously fed into the painting process. But I knew I had to incorporate that in some way. So because of that, I created installations. So I would have a really informal chat with each sitter, as we are now almost, asking them different questions and just bouncing back from what they're speaking about, which is then recorded and edited to create almost a monologue. So when somebody would visit the exhibition or come for a viewing of the pieces, you can look at the piece and then you can pop on a pair of headphones and you can listen to them speaking really openly about their experiences. And I was very lucky about how open people were. It was a body of work that had both celebrities and members of the public. Again, my reasoning for that, I'm kind of not, I don't really buy into the whole celebrity culture that we're all obsessed with. So again, that was out of frustration that I felt that the media only paid attention to mental illness when it was concerned with the celeb. So I wanted to almost use their status to then help the public to focus on their neighbour or somebody that works in the supermarket. So for every public figure I approached and created an installation of, I matched it by doing something, by featuring a member of the public as well. And I was really lucky, and it started off just being a passion project that I kind of wanted to get out of my system. I remember the opening night coincided with World Mental Health Day and my 30th birthday, and I was like, all the stars have aligned, I have to do this. But I got such wonderful feedback that I realised afterwards that this is something I do want to continue. And for me, I want to create art that means something. So
you gave parity, didn't you? Because I do recognise that, you know, that what people focus on, and when they see it in a public figure, it gets a lot of attention. But then actually, lots of people experiencing mental health problems, all the time. So that exhibition gave parity to a lot of people, and there's no single emphasis given to one person or another. It was just a group of people all telling their story.
Exactly. Some happen to be well known, some aren't, and that was the idea, that they had nothing in common, bar for the fact that they'd all had struggles with their mental health. And it was beautiful to see people's reactions and to see some people broke down crying, some people laughed. It was just great. And a lot of people afterwards felt that they could be more open. And that was my goal. And for me, it was just if it helped one person. But thankfully, I had lovely feedback. So that was great.
Yeah, and it's an exhibition that's got a bit of a life, hasn't it? It sort of still lives on, Bipolar Picasso, in some way, because it keeps coming back. Keep talking about it. Like I said, you mentioned the piece that you recently did in Wakefield, as well. Do you think is there more to go on that piece of that body of work, or what are you going to do with it now? Do you think?
Yeah, I think it's always going to be an evolving process for me. I mean, the piece that you speak about in Wakefield, so that was again, that was a piece from the Bipolar Picasso project, but that was a collaboration with Roy's Art Fair and Centrepoint charity. And the reason that I was so up for doing that was because being homeless and having mental health issues are so intertwined. There's such a thin line between the two. And that featured a wonderful young lady called Catherine. And she speaks, again, really openly about the fact that when she became homeless, that exacerbated her mental health problems. And that was sold and auctioned off for charity. And now it lives in Grand Central Station's first class lounge in Wakefield. So I think it's great to kind of have these collaborations because it can bring another dimension to them. And although that's kind of almost that body of Bipolar Picasso is finished, I'm now continuing it with these new series. So although they're not focused on mental illness as such, I've realized that there's so many more ways I can explore it, because this is the funny thing, we all have mental health, we all have mental health the way we have physical health, and everybody's on that spectrum, and I think it's funny at the moment with lockdown and with the crisis that we're going through, people that have never experienced anxiety before are now experiencing it, and maybe can have a little bit more empathy towards people that they never really could understand where they were coming from before.
So it's bringing it to the fore. People are experiencing life in a different way, and therefore maybe opening their eyes to, what other folk are experiencing, and probably being a bit more open to that now. Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think people are being more open to it. I think there's different kind of schools of thought, and people are dealing with this in very different ways. I think for often most people, it's really quite a roller coaster. I read something recently by author Matt Haig, and he said, 1 minute he is in absolute despair and thinking the world's going to fucking end, and then the next minute he's listening to birdsong and watching his children smile, and he feels like everything is so wonderfully beautiful. And I think it's accepting that it's okay to be on that roller coaster. And similarly, I saw a quote, I mentioned it actually the other day, but a lot of people are being really productive, and a lot of people are kind of learning a new instrument or baking more. And then some people are just struggling to kind of get up and eat, and that's also okay. And it said something funny like, it's okay to not be your most productive self during a fucking pandemic, and it's so true.
Absolutely right.
Yeah. So I think it's okay. I think we mustn't judge each other, and whatever your way is of dealing with it is great. And if that varies from day to day, that's also absolutely fine.
Absolutely right. It's okay to not be okay, basically, as well.
Yeah.
And it's okay to do whatever you want. Yeah.
Definitely. Yeah.
Andrea, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for talking to Art Online. It's been great catching up with you again. I always enjoy our chats. And
it's always lovely catching up with you.
Yeah, we always have a good chat, don't we?
Yeah.
Right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too. Can't wait to hug you. I'll see you soon. Bye.